Hello, hello, hello. Hello, everyone, and good evening. Welcome to Centrist Supremacy. This is your host, Banksy Style. I am here hosting on my own at the moment due to the small fact that we are currently missing our second host, Mr. Pavlov. I am just checking to see if he's going to what's it called? If he's going to join us in the StreamYard, but at the moment we have a no-show, so I'm gonna be doing it on my own, kids. That's right, I'm gonna take it on my own. This show will go on no matter what happens. Oh, people texting. Okay, I am now going to put the phone down because I need to concentrate on you, because that's right, it's all about you. So kids, what are we doing? And when are we doing it? We're doing it now. I'm drinking gin, so that Hendrix, you got to get the cucumbers in there. The cucumber doesn't show because it's green. The cucumber is see-through. I'm eating invisible cucumber. Look. I'm eating some weird invisible thing. It looked like I was eating the Centrist Supremacy sign. It's a cucumber, but unfortunately cucumbers are green, and the green that's going on back here doesn't gel so well. Beautifully done. Okay, so what are we doing? How many do we have anyone here yet? Let's before we fully engage, let us see if we have anyone at all. Well, we've got about 4 people, and that's a good enough number for me, because that's as good as it gets sometimes. Sometimes you just got to roll with those punches. 4 people it is. I have actually sent out the doolally. I try to post as much as possible to the variety of different, social media stuff. Hey, big up Collector, the first one in his house. So big up the Collector, and we're still on 4. And now we're on 5, so it's growing. It's growing at a steady pace. It's okay. If we got 5 will do. 6. I feel like I'm the Count from Sesame Street. 5 viewers. 6 viewers. And actually, we immediately went down to 4. Now we're at 4 viewers. So 2 people clicked and they didn't know what the hell was going on. That's what it was. 2 people clicked and they were just not sure. Hey, Kai. Big up, Kai. And everyone else who has arrived or will be arriving in due course. I'm sure everybody will arrive in due course. Now, tonight, since we don't have a co-host and I'm running things, I'm running things, innit? I'm running the things up in here. What I'm thinking about doing is, first of all, we're going to keep it short, probably an hour tops, 9 o'clock. Thank you very much. We're done. Second of all, I might throw out the StreamYard link to the panel. See anyone's got anything to say. Maybe we'll make it an open house. Maybe we'll make it a call-in show. Who knows? There you go. There's the StreamYard link. It's available for those who wish. 5 peanut butter and jello sandwiches. 5 peanut butter. So we're gonna throw it out a little bit, see what's going on, see what's happening. Now, to be honest with you, we're still building this little old channel of ours. So that's probably why there isn't that many people around. I mean, we only got 142 subscribers, for crying out loud. When I had 500 subscribers, I literally had 3 people on my live streams. 3 people. I'm not even joking. So it is to be expected. The funny thing is, though, when I was doing it on my own, it did feel kind of lonely with like 4 people in the chat. But when I do it with Pavlov and there's only 4 people in the chat, it doesn't feel that bad because you feel like you have, you're gonna have the conversation anyway with your co-host. You might as well just do it online. That's literally it. It's just like the conversations me and Pavlov intend to have. We just save them for the show, I think. Build it and they will come. Exactly, Collector. We shall build it and they will come. Whilst I slowly get inebriated on gin. I have to admit, we are trying to keep this one much more highbrow, so I can't get hammered. Manny Cinder in the house. So we got Manny in the house. Manny, the link is in the chat. If anybody wants to talk, you may jump on. Give me about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, because I'm going to just go over a couple of little things, innit? Just about our freedom of speech, to do with the theme of this evening's speeches of the freedoms. So I'm just going to go over a couple of little things, lay the groundwork, if you will, for those who wish to then later on come in and partake or put in their 2 cents. Shit! Wait a minute, what happened? Nope, that's not what I want. Okay, let's do it this one. Okay, well, tonight's little event, kids, boys and girls, is going to consist of this. Let me sorry guys, let me see. Let me hide that. Yeah. This is a little picture I found on Instagram. I have to admit, full credit given to Sargon of a Cat. He was the one who posted it. It is, this is the freedoms. This is the freedom. As promised, your freedom. And this is quite telling. I mean, this is obviously about the COVID situation. This is supposedly the freedom we got for Christmas. They opened us up for Christmas, except we're all on the number of tiers. You're either a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, or whatever tier you happen to be. It's like the friggin' Olympics or some shit. And so yeah, so this is your freedom that has come to us for Christmas. Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it amazing? Our benevolent dictators have given us so much freedom. And the funny thing is, some of the freedoms, we're going to go back to that. That's all freedoms of speech. That's all to do with freedom of speech. But these are the freedoms. Topshop owner Arcadia on brink of collapse. Yeah, we're going to have a lot of freedoms after this COVID is over. Freedom to literally go to nowhere and shop at nothing, because you'll be out of a job, so you'll have no money to shop, and you'll have nowhere to shop at because everywhere is going to be closed by default. It's not even going to be closed anymore because the government has banned it. No, once you get your little government-sanctioned injection of the vaccine, you'll be free. You'll be free to walk around the desolate stores. It'll be a scene from The Walking Dead, but you'll be free to walk around. And these are some of the advice. COVID Christmas. Avoid board games and sleepovers. So the things that you do at Christmas, just avoid them. I heard someone say a report about put grandpa near an open window. I'm not even joking. Avoid going near your elderly parents, your grandparents, and if you can, put grandpa next to an open window in December in the United Kingdom to ensure that grandpa will never awake again. Because if the COVID doesn't kill grandpa, I'll tell you what, that fucking open window sure as shit will. Put grandpa next to an open window. I mean, these people, what the fuck are they thinking? So yeah, so that's your freedom this Christmas, not to play board games, even though this happy family, oh, by the way, look at the racially diverse family as well. These are a couple of mixed race kids by the looks of it. And there's a possible mixed race family here. It's a mixed race family. So make sure you get your mixed race family to not play board games at Christmas, because that's all critical. The mixed race family here is critical for them not to play board games. And the white person, I mean, these two kind of look ethnic to me. I don't know. I mean, between you and me, they look mixed race. And the kids are definitely mixed race. But that white person is the only outsider. It's like there's a huddle. This is the family, and the white person is just on the outskirts. Let's not let the white person in, because they're not part of our family. Our family is mixed. I mean, who knows? She could be the mother. She probably is the mother. Anyway, what else do we got? We got nothing else. Okay, as you all know, Sadiq Kant has allowed us, or at least he admits to that Speaker's Corner is open. So come Sunday, now if I can get my ass out of my bed, I will try to be there on Sunday and to witness this unfold. But this is what happened when David Curtin asked Sadiq Kant whether Speaker's Corner is open.
Okay, Mr. Mir, I have made a complaint, but do you think that speakers should be allowed to speak in Speaker's Corner at this present time?
I think they should.
Okay, Mr. Mir, I have made a complaint, but do you think that speakers should be allowed to speak in Speaker's Corner at this present time?
I think they should. I think they should.
Big up. That little video editing comes at courtesy of Banksy Star Live. Do go like and subscribe to Banksy Star Live. Yes, I edited that a couple of nights ago just so that you can have it on your phone. If you are planning to go to Speaker's Corner, have it on your phone, ready to basically like cocked and loaded, in order for any what's it called, any jobs worth police officer that approaches you and tells you cannot be at Speaker's Corner. The Lord Mayor himself, who happens to be some sort of chief of whatever of the police in Metropolitan Police in London, has said, I think they should. Can speakers go to Speaker's Corner? And the mayor thinks we should. So there it is, without any ambiguity. Now, let's see what the Jobsworths on Sunday will say. Of course, they'll still try to arrest you and shoo you off. So don't get too aggressive. And finally, if you don't want to be arrested for the day, go when they tell you. But I would say at least attempt to show them this footage. It is been cut down. It is very concise. It is to the point. It is literally 25 seconds, the entire video. And I've even repeated it several times, Sadiq Khan's little speech. So there's no, there's no reason for you to at least challenge the police a little bit with this, if you wish so. Of course, we're not encouraging anyone to have any kind of rallies or gatherings. We're just simply saying, if you wish to go, you can challenge the police at least. That's my aim, is to see if we can at least put a little bit of pushback and say, look, the mayor literally said this is open. Speakers can speak at Speaker's Corner. So what's the issue here? What is the issue? And London is only on tier 2 is London only on tier 2 is worse. We should march on London and demand the same. I guess this is people from different parts of the country being on different things. I don't know. But anyway, let us go to our central question or central debate of today, which is freedom of speech. Free speech. And this is obviously represented at the moment by the United States, which is probably the only free nation that actually upholds the true meaning of freedom of speech in any meaningful way. I mean, Britain and Europe have basically cucked out to the social justice left, and with their hate speech laws, you can't really call Britain a free speech country. It is some speech country at best, some freedom of speech at best, but certainly nowhere near the true principle of freedom of speech. It does not contain that whatsoever. If you can have people like Count Dankula be arrested for grossly offensive material or a message or communication or whatever the hell they want to call it, then that's it. It's the day Count Dankula was convicted. then we knew that was the day that was the final nail in the coffin of freedom of speech. We have what is known as an illusionary, a sort of symbolic concept of freedom of speech here, but there's no real freedom of speech. But the United States, I think, still has it, and we should be grateful that there is at least one place in the world where they actually are holding up to real freedom of speech. Now, it's funny how, by the way, you see this cartoon, it says, "Can you just move it so it doesn't cover them?" And everybody is pointing to everyone else, the Muslims and the Christians and liberals, I guess. This is the gays with the rainbow flag. I don't know what that is. Maybe a Mexican. Some businessmen, I guess. I don't know. I mean, yeah, obviously the tiki torch is definitely the supposed to be the white supremacists. That's clear. Delicate you, I guess that's another social justice. Anyway, everybody wants to someone else's freedom of speech to be taken away, but theirs to be remain. You know, this is actually classic, where the Muslims go, "Well, freedom of speech doesn't mean the freedom to offend." Yes, but your freedom, the same freedom of speech that gives me the freedom to offend what you think is offensive, or say what you think is offensive, is exactly the same freedom that you use when you read out of your Quran that all non-believers, Christians and Jews, are the worst of creatures. That the Jews and Christians were made into pigs and monkeys. You see that? If we take away the freedom of speech for me to offend you, then I want your Quran to be banned because it offends me. It literally calls me the worst of creatures. I have never called Muslims the worst of creatures. I have never said Muslims are the worst of creatures. No matter how grotesque, no matter how crass I am about Islam, I have never said Muslims are the worst of creatures. Your Quran literally goes further than my absolutely crass and uncouth self. And I say the most vilest shit all the time. I, of course, try not to do it on this channel, and I just said shit. So I apologize for that. If the kids are watching. Kids, don't copy Uncle Banksy. Uncle Banksy says bad things. But don't copy the Quran either, because the Quran says terrible things too. I wouldn't put a Quran in front of kids anyway. I mean, it's brainwashing. But you see, you know what about things that offend you, or the things that are upsetting? See, there was a time when these people were extremely offensive too. They offended a whole bunch of people when they decided to do these things, when they went out and started to talk about how they should require equality. You see this sign, "We are not allowed to vote," that was very offensive to people. At once and apart, the white people, the white majority, the ruling classes, were extremely offended at these uncouth and unruly black folks asking for their rights. This was a very offensive. Some of these were illegal. These were not just offensive; they were illegal acts. They were put down in law. You guys, you Muslims are crying about how, oh, your feelings are hurt and you're offended. Some of the acts that the civil rights people did, they literally had to break the law. They went to jail for it because it was against the law for them to ask for these things, but they did nevertheless. So when you're talking about your feelings, fifis being hurt, well, guess what? There are times when, in order to push back and in order to actually uphold certain moral principles which are superior, which are better than your Quran, well, then your feelings are going to have to be hurt. Feelings usually get hurt when you try to uphold certain things, when you try to say that a certain belief or a certain sacred, cherished idea is wrong. Feelings get hurt. That happens. I'm sorry. Your feelings will get hurt because people in this country, like me and many others, don't believe that your religion says good things about people. We don't believe your religion is a good force for the world. We don't believe it. We don't agree with it. And so we were going to say, we don't like you. We don't like your religion. We don't like you. No, I apologize for that misspeak. I like Muslims. Most of them. Don't get me wrong. There are assholes everywhere. But I like Muslims because Muslims can become non-Muslims. But Islam can never be better than what it is. unless Muslims decide to basically tear chunks out of the book, and I don't see them doing that anytime soon. So I'm sorry if your fifis are hurt, but that's the price we pay, because that's the way it is. And we have a winner. We have a winner in the house, Mr. Manny Cinder. Whoop whoop whoop. Mr. Manny, are you with us? Can you hear me?
So let's talk about free speech. Let's talk about the crimes against free speech.
Oh, here we go.
Who commits the biggest crimes against free speech, and who commits the biggest crimes against the people? Is it the average Joe doing something to average Phil? No, never. It's always the establishment. It's always the government. In other words, the biggest crimes that are ever committed against anyone are those people in charge, are the governments, are the monarchies, are the religious institutions, are those people who are leading us. No, what can the average person do? They may stab somebody, which is horrific. They may rob somebody, which is bad enough. They may even do something very emotionally neglectful. But does that compare to rallying up an army and bombing a whole country, killing women and children and sons and the rest of it? Never. Does it ever equate to rallying up armies and going to other countries and invading them and taking them over? Never, not once can the average person ever compel themselves to commit such evil crimes. It's always those that rule us. How do they do it? Well, the Middle East recent wars has been a perfect example of how they do it. And if you can read, if you can pick up a book, if you bother turning off the TV, the crap that BBC tries to feed us, you will learn that this type of rubbish has been going on throughout our human existence, where the ruling authorities kind of create situations and create these enemies and bogeymen and strawmen and say they did this and they said that and now we must go this. It's ludicrous, right? It's always in the name of something. It's always in the name of a religion, of a country, and we just need to wake up. We need to raise our awareness above of the control system and realize that we ourselves don't commit these crimes. It's actually those who are pretending to lead us, but they are of a lower conscience.
Well, that's interesting. You've raised several issues here, Manny. Now, in my little earlier sort of rant, I talked about freedom to offend or to critique religions, even to the point where the religious will be offended. But now you're saying that the real people who are truly the ones who take away our freedom of speech and freedoms because they don't want their particular activities to be critiqued are the powerful. Now, in this scenario, what are you saying? Are you saying that the Muslim or the religion of Islam and the Muslims in the country are not really powerful, so critiquing Islam and going after them is not really there's no real benefit to that, and so we should stop that and then go after something else? Or is it that we can do both or multiple things simultaneously? What is it?
That's true.
Where is the if you were to make a list of top 10 things to attack and use our freedom of speech to highlight and to critique, what would that be?
Well, look, put it this way. What I'm trying to say is, let's take the Muslim community, for example, right? So who is it that does the beheading? Who is it that does the killing, the invading from the Islamic ISIS side? It's those that follow and adhere to the extreme side of Islam, which is what we've known to be ISIS, right? Which is not really the average mindset from the Muslim community. So what is ISIS? It's a political regime that's trying to take over, no different to an establishment that's trying to take over another country, right? So if they get their law and order in there, then that is their political order established. However, thanks to the likes of Donald Trump, the likes of ISIS haven't been able to get a firm foothold in the Middle East and so on and so forth, including Russia, of course, who have helped Syria. So this is what I'm saying. So an establishment is really an organization that's been organized in the masses to inflict damage on the masses for their own personal gain. The average person that follows a regime like ISIS doesn't really gain. I mean, let's take the protocol of gang and the likes of Respect, and who says, we the British people or the white people have gained from, the British monarchy and the British establishment going into the likes of India, the likes of Africa. Really? You think the average British white person gained from the British establishment taking over? Let's take India, for example. How do you think the average British white person? Because when my grandfather came over in the 40s, after fighting World War II and then getting rid of the British East India Company, do you think he came over with the average white person living in palaces and riding in carriages of gold? No, he didn't. So it's completely ludicrous. Only those who are organized, the establishment, they gain wealth and they keep wealth within their ranks.
But can I, if I were to play devil's advocate on this one, although I do largely agree, but there is always a splinter of thought in my head in regards to this sort of claim that the average English person never really gained anything. I think that might not necessarily hold up, because although the average English person on the street will not directly gain from those wealth that was stolen and taken through the colonial period, the drip down effect and the fact that finances those treasures and those things that were taken have fueled the Industrial Revolution in Britain, thus bringing it to the top of the sort of league, if you like, the global league of countries, thus giving raising the middle class, raising the average standard of living, and so overall the society has risen because of that pillaging and if you like colonial taking at the beginning, at the top. So the top obviously got far richer, but everybody, like there's an old saying, a rising tide raises all boats. Is it not I mean, can we honestly say that Britain has not gained its position and power in the world because of its colonial era?
Well, maybe not 100%, right? But I'm talking about the average British person that's labelled as if they and their family are responsible of what the establishment did. So let's take it in our lifetimes, right? So I fought against any war in the Middle East, right? Sending emails, being very vocal. I did not want war because I'm from a military family. I did not want war. I know what war is. I know what war equates to. I know where it ends, and I know the vacuum it creates. But could I help it? I could not help it. So now you could say, in theory, even though this is not true, say for example, the sand in Iraq had diamond jewels in it, right? And we know from a fact. In fact, let's go for a specific actual example. There were bricks upon bricks of gold, right? 10 kilos each taken from Saddam Hussein. Did you see any money of that, Banksy? Because I definitely did not. And I was a commodities trader for a number of years. I definitely did not see any wealth entering into my personal bank account or any other way of the bars of gold that was taken from Saddam Hussein.
Oh, sure. I mean, of course, you wouldn't see it directly in that way. Nobody's going to come and knock on your door and say, oh, here's a bar of gold we took from Iraq. But those who do take, eventually they need to, they will build factories, they will build businesses, which will then hire people, which will then put money into the pockets of those people, and it will raise the wage, it would raise the wages of the society. Because the thing is, if you read the book called Dictator's Handbook, in the Dictator's Handbook, it stipulates that any dictatorship or any society to be successful, it is based upon the treasure upon that society. So whatever treasure that king has, so if you become the king of a country, your ability to remain king only depends on your ability to be able to use the treasure of the country to pay the various keys of your society, the key players, the key people who, the generals of your army and your ministers of your banks and so on and so forth, in order to make sure that they run the country, because no king can rule alone, No, a king can't build roads. A king can't run the army. A king can't run the police service. A king requires people, other people, keys to his kingdom in order to.
So you're saying indirectly that gold was sold.
No, I'm saying that gold was used to create industries that then benefited the people of the country.
How?
Because in order for you to okay, let's say a man goes to Iraq, Halliburton person. Well, Halliburton needs liquid cash, don't they? They need liquidity in order to expand or grow or build factories or do whatever it is they need to do. Well, they suddenly end up with a truckload of gold. That gold gives them instant liquidity, gives them instant cash flow. And once they manage their cash flow, then they open up factories and they make sure that their company is successful. Thus, the success of the company reflects on the success of the employees, and trickles down.
Yeah, I can kind of go with that, because I've seen that model work, not with any employees of Halliburton, but kind of with people coming in from abroad with significant amount of help. Fine, I can go with that, but that's not really a conscious effort of the average British person to gain, because the average British person is really looking to make themselves better.
I 100% agree with you.
Whether that wealth is coming from one source or another source is kind of irrelevant, and most people don't even research who the owner of a company is, and so on and so forth. So they're just trying to feed their families, they're just trying to pay their bills and that type of thing. This is what I mean. It's not like a conscious effort for them to go out of their way and say, I'm only going to work for Mr. X because I know Mr. X's grandfather made his money by going abroad and invading another country and bringing over gold. Right?
No, I 100% agree with you. And I can even show you the follies of what I just did as a counter argument to your argument. I can actually argue my own argument because in reality, most of these companies and these corporations who do go to these countries, they don't bring the money back into the nation and invest it into their own nation. They actually squirrel away in some Cayman Island tax-free haven in which it never actually comes back to the nation anyway, and it remains as a tax-free haven for their for the multimillionaires and multi-billionaires in order to remain billionaires and millionaires for generations to come. So 10 generations down, they're still billionaires even though they haven't really done much.
I just want to make a couple of points. First of all, not even Zabida let me wait this long in the back.
I'm sorry. I do.
So fuck you, yeah.
Look, I said give me a few minutes before you jump on.
But going back to your point is what I've got two genuine points to consider. First, for the Muslim community, the Muslim community so far have been treating right-wingers as their enemy. What they don't understand, that the right-wingers are very much on their side to a certain extent, and that is that right-wingers want the freedom to do whatever the hell they want, and they want to preserve the freedom for what the Muslim community, the Hindu community, Sikh community, or any community, including the Christian community or atheist community, to say and do whatever they want. That's what the general position of the right-wingers is, whether it's freedom of speech or anything else. So fighting the right-wingers is really fighting yourself, because if the right-wingers, conservatives like myself, are defeated by these liberal communistic types, then that means the next person or the next group they're coming for are the religious people, because the left wing are communistic, they are atheists, and they are very anti-religion or anything that has a consensus, i.e. a group. So what we, the likes of me, we need to try to make everybody understand that this fight against free speech, like we're seeing in Speaker's Corner and everywhere else, and you have to wear masks and you have to do this. It's not a bloody law. There's no draconian measures. You don't have to do it. If you can't stand up to the police, just wear a skirt, wear a pair of knickers, and just call yourself a woman. All right? It's as simple as that.
Let me just let me just point this out. Are you saying, when you say right wingers, because we got to clarify, because some people are making guessing about where you mean right wing. Are you aware of the right wingers such as Ralph and such as Mark Collette?
No, they're not right wingers. They're not conservative. They're some extreme level, extreme left and extreme right. They're an outer circle that are no different to each other.
Okay. You see, because now, people in the chat are thinking that you're talking about Ralph.
I've seen elements of Ralph that kind of makes me think, actually, Ralph is okay. While he was on my channel, that's why I gave him access to it. But then I've seen him do things before and after, in fairness, that's now made me think like, no, that wasn't right. But the problem with me is I'm not a scaredy cat. I don't if somebody does something crazy, I don't immediately start throwing my toes out the pram. But overall, I don't generally think that the people that you've mentioned are any different to the likes of the extreme left, which are practically communists.
Yeah. Okay. So you're saying the shoehorn effect, the different side of the same side of different side of the same coin. But you see, this is where the distinction comes, because unfortunately in this day and age, Ralph considers himself right wing and a conservative. He says he's a conservative. He doesn't say that he's far right. He doesn't see himself as an extremist. He sees himself as a genuine conservative. And so from his perspective, he is on the same level as possibly you are. But would you say then you are more centrist than you are conservative?
I look, my actual and genuine political spectrum is very different to the average person. I will say that, and I'll explain it. So I am actually, or I consider myself as a protectionist, because I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. I think the likes of the Magna Carta and the English common law is all we need. It's what's built the great nation that we live in. And I think that we just need to revert back to that. Even if we can't, we can borrow so much from that. We got to remember that the likes of the American Constitution made the greatest country in the world, which was the United States of America, and they got their laws and principles from the Magna Carta and the English common law. And the English common law generated from the Swiss law, which came from the fact that the Swiss government admitted in the age of piracy that they could not protect the local people, or certainly those who were fishing and had boats, and therefore they allowed them to keep guns and arm themselves so they can protect themselves. That is what the roots of the Western democracy and freedom and protect yourself comes from. It's the fact that the government actually can't protect you. It's a fallacy, it's a myth, it's a Walt Disney movie if you think that policemen and anybody else or minister like fat fucks like Boris Johnson is actually going to protect you. He's not protecting anything apart from his wallet and the secrets. That's most likely if the Maxwell and Epstein have anything to go by, it's probably he's being camcorded doing something that he shouldn't have.
Well, I mean, we can touch back on that, circle back to that later, because I think the Maxwell thing. I think anyone who gets into that level of power has to be in such a position of vulnerability that the people who want to control them have a very tight sort of leash around their neck before they allow them to become the prime ministers and the presidents of the world. I suspect that is the case with most of these leaders in certainly Western European and possibly more all around the world. But that's an entirely different thing. That's more of an Alex Jonesy thing. I want to keep it onto this freedom of speech and the right wing. What I've noticed now through your speeches, Manny, you're saying now your Overton window has somewhat shifted further to the center than when it initially appeared when you first started talking, because when you kind of consider people like Ralph and Patriotic Alternative and Colette to be the other side of the same coin as ISIS, effectively, which is what I actually been calling them. I've been calling them the British Taliban, because they want to enact a Christian theocracy, the way the ISIS and the Taliban want to enact a Muslim theocracy. So I don't see them fundamentally in any different way. But When you
But
say,
do you understand their point that if Britain carries on in the current road, which is the white British community are having less children than there is a population, and non-British white people are having more children, then eventually there's going to become a ratio where the white people need to mate and produce if they're allowed to, which they won't do because the must draconian police are not going to give you a license when you can produce a child or not. Remember, that's in their own literature if you read Agenda 21, because humanity is a danger to itself. Remember, you're being taught that humanity is poison, right?
Okay,
so that's the program you're going on. But anyway, I digress. But my point now, put yourself in their shoes, in their opinion. Now, if you felt as if like your roots were being outbred, would you not kind of instinctively feel, actually, this is not right? We didn't ask for this.
Yeah. I mean, I absolutely. I think anyone from any nation. I've been arguing this with our friends on Discord for a long time, that it seems unnatural to ask a people of a nation. Now, admittedly, when it comes to some of the right wingers and on the other chats, I kind of do challenge them, and I say to them, it's on you. Don't blame the foreigner because you're not having enough kids. And I do believe that. I believe also that there is a greater responsibility and a greater burden upon the shoulders of the natives to repopulate their own country and make sure they hold their country as the majority. But it is unnatural. And this is something that I've been hearing from other people tell me, that if you are in this country holding a British passport, you are as British and as English, some people even go to as far as say, as any Anglo-Saxon that is in this country, and that you don't have to have any sense of alienation. Like this is as much your country as anyone else, and any English person who comes up to you and says this isn't your country, you can tell them to go F themselves, because it absolutely is. And I'll be honest with you, this doesn't really sit with me. I have never been fully convinced of this, that I can...
I'll be honest, my view is this: unless you adhere to and relate to and you are accustomed to the English common law, the British values, you're not British. You could be born in this country, you could have a British passport. I categorically tell you right now, if you do not follow the British values, as far as I'm concerned, you're not really British. You might be British on paper, but let's face it, you're not really British because your values are not British. Your values could come from some far eastern country, and that could be the same as Nazi Germany or communist China or even socialist India or wherever it is that you come from. If you're not British in your mindset, you're not really British, and that's a problem.
The thing is, I can even agree to that and still say that I still don't think that I have the right to say this is the because see, for me, I think ancestry matters. I genuinely do. As a person of an Iranian and stroke Persian sort of background and heritage, Iranians hold on to their Persian ancestry a lot. They covet that a lot, and they hold it to their bosom because they are really, really attached to their ancestry. And I don't think that you can go to an Iranian and tell them, no, you're no longer an Iranian. You're no longer you shouldn't big up Persia anymore. You got nothing to do with Persia. You're a British man now. You have nothing, to do with Persia. And in fact, most Iranians don't even have anything to do with Persia historically in Iran, let alone outside of Iran, because Persia hasn't been Persia for about the best part of 1,000 years. So to say that to an Iranian, to say stop talking about Persia and holding yourself, holding this Persian culture and Persian ancestry to your chest so much. You're British now. You've been British since you were born, or since you were 5, or since you were whatever age you came to this country. You hold all the values of the Magna Carta. You're not Persian. You're British. Stop talking about your Persian ancestry. I just don't think any Iranian would go for this.
I understand. This is why I always label myself as British Indian, because my morals, my attitude, my upbringing, very middle class, is very British.
Yeah.
But I'm Indian. I mean, look at me. I've got a golden suntan. I mean, I can stand in the sun for 10 minutes and I start looking like a good old barbecued naan. I mean, I'm British Indian. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to pretend that I'm something that I'm not.
But that's the thing. That's the critical key here. It's this ancestry that makes your country your own, I think, to some extent. Now, maybe in 1,000 years from now, maybe someone like yourself, whose generation goes back 500 years, 1,000 years, maybe that line will blur, because it has done throughout history from other nations, where one nation was one thing, like this country was Celts. Now the English and the Anglo-Saxons call themselves the natives of this land, whilst they're invaders, effectively. The Celts are the real natives. If you really want to find the native, you have to go to Wales or Scotland, to really find the native. So the Celts were the true ancestors, natives, and then the Anglo-Saxons arrived, and now the Anglo-Saxons, after a good 1,000 years, call themselves natives. Now, maybe 1,000 years from now, a person like yourself or a person like myself can say we are natives of this land because we go back 1,000 generations. And I'd say that's a fair, statement or a fair comment to look at. But right now, after a mere 50, 60 years of migration, I don't really think, even was it 60 years, 70 years of migration? I don't think that's enough time.
What's more important to you? Do you think it's more important that the likes of you and I, sons and, well, I'm a grandson of an immigrant, former British military, Indian military. So do you think it's more important for someone like me to be able to live and do whatever I want in this country? Or do you think it's more important that the ratio between what's happening at the moment, where the population is vastly growing in non-British heritage, what do you think is more important to preserve? My rights as a non-British genetic British person, or do you think it's right to save that whole ratio where eventually, if we don't do anything, there's going to be more non-British people genetics than they are British genetics? Because that is the ultimate question when it comes down to the likes of Ralph and the other person you mentioned.
Ralph and Mark Collette and what's it called? These ethno-nationalists, effectively. I'll just use the term ethno-nationalism as an umbrella term for all of them. These guys, they feel that their genetic race, even though most of them are Anglo-Saxon sort of Europeans, not Celts, so they're not even like delving down to the, they're not rooting down to the Celts, because they themselves know that they're going to get caught up in a purity spiral. They think that their genes, their genetics is what should be the dominant majority race in this country. They think that is the optimal thing. Do you agree? Well, I don't, because I don't want to live in a country that's 90% Anglo-Saxon, but everybody's a Muslim.
Why not?
That's a nightmare. That's my nightmare come true. To have the whole 90% of white English people that are all Islamists, that are all Taliban.
Why would you live in a Britain where it's 90% white British and 10% Muslim? How is that even possible?
No. I'm saying I don't. This is what I'm trying to say to you. Ideology matters. Ideology trumps race in this regard for me. I would rather have 50% or 40% white Anglo-Saxons and 60% non-Anglo-Saxons, but all non-Muslim or secular, and a country that's a secular, than to have 90% Anglo-Saxons that are all jihadi Muslims and the country becomes an Islamic theocracy. There is no fucking way I want that scenario.
See, look, I'm not really in the mind frame to ban anything. This is why I never voice myself against any religion or anything. I mean, I kind of do with political systems, and yes, religions are political systems. Because what really my outlook is not to ban anything, because we don't need to do that. We just need to grow the conscience and intelligence of the people, because when you become more intelligent, you don't really need to be told which hand to wipe your ass with. You don't really need to be told if you need to wear anything on top of your head or over your face. You don't really need to be told whether you need to get on your knees in a church and pray. You don't really need to be told any of these like kind of low IQ things. So it's like, if we need to overcome this, is rather than banning anything and rather than pointing out the flaws, because the people that follow a lot of these different political and religious regimes, they're just kind of in an ignorant generational loophole, right? You've got to remember that religion is multi-generational. So that type of level of intelligence or misintelligence or ignorance, however you want to label it and look at it, it's multi-generational, right? So if you have the intelligence to break away from that level of thinking, it probably comes from your parents in the first place, because the average child is 30% more intelligent than their actual parents by the end of it. So if you actually end up in a life which is 30% less intelligent, say you're a man and you end up in prison and your parents didn't, then and that means that you've kind of stooped to such low intelligence, because being confined to and committed to crime is a lower form of intelligence. Then you're just showing that you haven't even followed kind of human genetic path where you actually can outthink your parents, which you're genetically formulated to do.
I agree with you. I fundamentally agree with the concept of actually raising above, all the barriers, genetic barriers, social barriers. So yes, I think we should encourage a society that elevates the person above these things, which are in the long run, I don't think they're as important as people think they are. But the problem is, this is the argument that the ethno-nationalists make, and this is I don't think it has validity, but this is an argument that they make, that their intelligence, their behavioral patterns, and their codes of conduct stem from their genetics. That people without their genetics would not be able to do what they do. They don't behave the way they behave. Now, I think that's fundamentally wrong, because it has been shown around the world that there are far better behaved people with different genetics than the British, and they've done just as great things, and they don't have the British genetics to do it. So you don't need the British genetics to do any of the things that the British have done. But their ethno-nationalist argument is, no, we would only create this society because of the genes that we have. And if we had other genes, this society would not have been created.
I graduated around the year 2000, and I walked into a very high-paid media job. And at the time, I used to go, and I think I was very cool, and now I know I wasn't. Used to go to a hairdresser's called Tony and Guy. They're not very big now. Used to get my all hair spiked up, and it was the whole rage. But one of the hairdressers I used to have in Farringdon, there used to be a Tony and Guy's in Farringdon, was a black gentleman, and me and him used to talk politics every single time I used to go in there, which was every two weeks. And he turned around to me and said, if anybody else created and formulated gunpowder into a bullet, then other than the British or the European, then it would have been a very different world today.
Exactly.
Right. And I kind of understand that, right? But then we don't really need to overstand that either. What I mean by that is, when the British East India Company reached India, India was the fourth biggest economy in the world. By the time they left India, it was a third world country.
Yeah.
Right. So India, remember, they got there, it was the fourth but it was already coming down from the first biggest economy in the world. India at one time, in many decades and years ago, was the number one country. It was the America of today. They ran the world from Delhi. I mean, people may not want to realize that, and they first started stepping down, and that's why the likes of the political regime of the Mughal Empire, which was the ISIS, the first ISIS of the day, right, tried to overtake it, and they couldn't ever fully do it. So my point is. So my point is, like, every single people, every single country, every single regime has its day, and then it moves on unless you move and you become and stay what it needs to be. Well, and unfortunately, when countries fall, they usually fall for a lesser regime. India went from a Vedic, very equal system into a British kind of socialist system, and it's never been the same since.
Well, this is my thought on the Western world, is that, like you said, everybody's had their day in the sun. The Indians, the Persians, the Romans, the Mongols, the Chinese. I mean, the Chinese, after the sort of period of colonialism by British, who no longer needed to go to China for their tea and for all the other silk and other things that they used to get from China, the Chinese called that the period of shame. The period that they were shamed and they fell. And the funny thing is, the Chinese want to be back on top of the heap again. That's what they're working towards. And this is where the Chinese global maneuvering probably comes into it. But the fact is that, yes, everybody's had their day in the sun. Could this be that we are simply living in the age where we're at the precipice, or at the beginning, maybe even further along, I don't know, of the fall of the West? That the Western civilization as we know it is going to degrade and fall, just like the Indians, just like the Persians and the Romans, because they always fall from within as well. They don't necessarily always fall from outside. They quite often fall with, I mean, in India's case, sure, they were invaded by the Mughals, then the British, but there was probably, degradation, like you said. They were already falling from the third biggest economy to the fourth. So there was already decline inside from within, and it just the outside force was just the final push of the domino.
So what you said there is absolutely magnificent, and the average mind doesn't really even comprehend that, let alone state it in a conversation like this. But not only do we have to understand what you just said there, we need to understand how it follows, right? So if we take that world empire started from China, and then we understand that it went over to the Vedic structure, which was India. India was much bigger. It incorporated Kashmir, Afghanistan, Pakistan, going as far as way towards Iran, and also Thailand on the eastern side, right? So as that retracted, it went over to the Middle East, and then that's when we had the Mughal Empire coming over, followed by the likes of the Roman Empire in Italy, then going over to France, and then coming over to Britain, and now in America, and now it's shifting over to China, right? So there's obviously a systematic astrological effect on everything, which is one of the reasons why all religions, their symbolism is created by astrology, because they all have whoever creates these things have a general understanding that the power of astronomy and the effects on countries and nations on the planet, or the nation, world nation on the whole, is kind of a repetitive pattern. It's like the sun goes round. Absolutely. So as we see the power being drained for whatever reason, internally or externally, in which case the communists having an effect through the Democratic Party and everything else in the Western world, in America, it's now going over to China. And we see at the same time India getting more powerful. We start seeing Russia getting more powerful, Thailand getting more powerful, Burma, leading country of organic farming, and the rest of it. What are these nations doing? They're on the east side, and that's where the power is going, and it's going. I mean, you're talking to somebody with a family with investments in India. I can categorically tell you that the power, from my understanding, is definitely shifting from west to east. But whether that's right, I don't think so, because, like I said, I am a protectionist. I am a reservationist. I feel that the English common law and the foundations and the morals that this country was built upon, I'm not saying where it is now, but built upon, is one of the best foundations that I've ever seen. And I've spent a hell of a lot of time researching and reading different systems.
Okay, that is. I mean, okay. I'm trying to think of practical solutions. Is this inevitable? Are we just simply riding out the last glory days of the Western civilization, and that basically within a few generations the world is going to now go back looking to the East, possibly the Chinese East, for their superpowers, for their economies, and for their basically for how things were for thousands of years before the sort of rise of industrial age?
Can I tell you something? This is crazy, right? So how did my family end up with what they have in India, whatever that is, right? So I was growing up and I had a very famous grandfather who worked anything between the Indian government and the British government, doing whatever very well too. You got to remember that the average Indian Sikh Punjabi Jat community, you don't really have a very highly educated individual within your family. It's very few and far between. And when you do, the whole family rubs shoulders with the same type of aristocratic type of Indians and Sikhs and so on and so forth. So the thing with my family, I'm the only son in my family. So as a consequence, rather than being allowed to be a child, and play with whatever games were around, I was taken to all these kind of older men meetings, and I rubbed shoulder with the kind of people that you'd probably, if I laid the names out, you'd be like, what, really? But to cut a long story short, is like I came to the understanding that all these brilliant people, successful people, all have kind of a central belief, and that central belief came from very old Sikh scriptures, and these old Sikh scriptures said that the time will come in such a way, that their prediction that the time will come that even though the Western world will be in all its brilliance, that the time will come that all the people that have gone abroad would have to return, because that would be the end game, if you like, even though that's not the terminology that their scriptures use. It was like, well, that would be the situation where the Western world would no longer be the place that you needed to be, and people will flee and return to their home nations. And at the time as a kid, you got to remember that I'm growing up in Leeds, and there's Diego Maradona, number 10, winning the World Cup, and I'm growing up with England football and all these wonderful, brilliant things, PlayStations coming out, computers here. I'm living in a wonderful sunny place in Northern England, and I'm thinking, you guys are a joke. But all of a sudden, fast forward to 2020, and I'm seeing the political atmosphere that's creating. I'm thinking, WTF, what the hell did I miss?
Wow.
And these things are actually in scriptures. This is what and this is what I've always said. I had debates with James S from the communist Discord server,
yes.
free range bullshit server, Discord, sorry, and also Rob Speaker's Corner. I used to have these debates with them, and I used to say, it's like, well, if you actually sit down and put your egos aside and just pan out what these things have kind of predicted, it kind of seems to think that they kind of predict it in a bold point. They wanted like hardcore truth that, such a case and a scientific experiment laid out this, laid out that. And I'm saying to these people, like, I'm kind of the proof. I can see where it came from, and what I learned. And anyway, I'm sharing the story with you, which is very personal and very true.
But do you actually believe that these old religious scriptures actually held prophet-like messages, or were they just simply by wise men?
Metaphors.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So these were wise men who've already seen these patterns occur in humanity, and they have literally recorded, and we are just repeating what what other men have done. They say those who don't learn from their history are doomed to repeat it. Is it the fact that human beings simply go in cycles and we keep repeating our own mistakes over and over again, and these religious texts and these metaphors are simply people who've seen these patterns of human behavior and have just recorded it? And you can then extrapolate that. It doesn't matter what technology we have around us. It doesn't matter what, phones and computers and all of these craziness. We just keep falling into the same patterns. There's this almost like rails of a train. And no matter how hard we try to pretend that we're making our own decisions, that we're doing things differently than our predecessors, we're not. We just keep doing what we did.
All I can say with this, and this is the perfect question to ask for this channel, right? From what I spent nearly a decade reading every single religion, and this is the sole reason why I actually never debate religion, because the research and evidence I have with religions, I can pretty much destroy all of them, but that's not my reason of my existence. I've kind of had enough of religion. It's not even worth my comprehension. But what I'm saying is this, that for some reason, humanity is never allowed to become a centralist community, right? We seem to be going from left wing, to use a popular narrative, to right wing, and right wing to left wing, and left wing to right. For some reason, we never, as a community, as a country, we never seem to be settled. Like, why can't we vote? Or why can't we decide, like, we just want to be centralist, we just want to be centrist, we just want to be in the middle and we want to live and let live. But we're never allowed to do that. So that can only mean that there are external forces, external persuasions that's kind of influencing us in such a way that we end up kind of fighting each other. And that's what my stance is, and that's one of the reasons why I've come back onto the Speaker's Corner scene, is to say, look, we're being played. That the same people that bombed X country is also the same people that are masking up the police to giving them a cover and say arrest them or arrest her, and not allow them to practice their freedom of speech. It's the same enemy. It's the same people that are preventing truth and honesty and freedom of expression to be played out.
Interesting. Yeah, that's some deep stuff. Unfortunately, I'm gonna wrap this up because I wanted to only do an hour on this show, because I also want like Pavlov to be also involved when he does. But although he's uploading a lot of videos, so he's already putting in way over his share of content on this channel. But I generally didn't want it to become too long, because then people don't watch 2-hour videos. But these are some very good thought-provoking sort of concepts, because I'm now thinking about, I'm looking at religious texts, and I have been for a while, that if you take away the metaphysics, if you take away the gods and the magic and the walking on water and splitting moons, if you just see them as men recording their time and the things that they've observed, and these religious texts just happen to be effectively history books that have been manipulated by metaphysical crap, and they've become, comic books, but they were originally just documentations, form of documenting what was happening to these people at their time, and what things they've observed, and what patterns of human migration and movement they've observed.
Look at it this way. Look at it on an astrological level. The thing is, we're being taught as children to look at astrology as if it's some kind of joke. Let's not do that. Let's look at the possibility of the influence of some planetary alignment, right? So for example, why is it that every single Virgo or every single Piscean or every single Gemini have similar characteristics? How is that even possible? Because we know that is to be true. And if we look at religion through the same perspective, for example, we go to the ancient Hebrew text of the Bible and realize that Jesus was never God's son, S-O-N, as in the child, but the God's son, S-U-N.
Yeah.
as in the sun, we start realizing that we've been misled. Jesus was never supposed to be an actual human being walking amongst us. It was supposed to be a representation of the influences of the stars, just like all Virgos are perfectionists, all Pisceans trying to go out of their way and make the other person feel better. These are characteristics. So that's how religion is based upon, every single religion, but whether or not it's being manipulated in any other way is something that we need to kind of analyze. But like I said, I spent nearly a decade looking into this, so I kind of feel that I have a strong opinion on it.
I'm with you. I'll be perfectly honest. For full disclosure, I don't believe in astrology in its metaphysical aspect. But of course, I do acknowledge that human beings. I mean, this is a comment actually someone made a long time ago that I heard about astrology. It says, look, the moon itself affects the gravitational pull of the tides. And it affects the tides on this planet. Most scientists say it's because of its gravitational force or whatever. But
okay. Let me put it another way. What is this? What is the symbol of Islam?
Oh, the crescent moon. Yeah.
Right. So the Hindu symbol, the top part of the Hindu symbol, which is actually a crest and a star. Isn't that astrology?
Well, yeah. I mean, of course, but this is religions.
Go back and look at the original symbol or the Nahang symbol of Sikhism, and now go back and research the original symbolism of Judaism and every single religion and seek out the origins of astrology and astronomy with every single religion, and you'll soon find out that your religion comes from astrology, whether you believe it or not, or whether you have the ability to comprehend and decipher how it's related. Then you need to invite me back for another show, and I'll show you with evidence how it's done.
Yeah, that would actually be a very good, very interesting. So we could spend the whole hour just purely on that. I say.
But you're closing the show now, and I've been talking, so I'm going to go.
Yeah.
No problem. But thank you, everybody. Thanks, Banksy. Appreciate it, mate.
Thank you, mate. Thank you, Manny, for coming. I'll catch you then on the next run. So yeah, I'm gonna give this one a rest, and I want to finish on this. On this particular sign. Now, the thing is, this conversation has now sort of stoked some fires in me. I might actually kick off another stream on my channel, Banksy Style Live, later on today or maybe tomorrow. Actually, I want to collate my thoughts a little bit on things that were said and try to give a more fuller sort of explanation. Although I don't fundamentally believe in the astrology, because it's not science. It's still kind of pseudoscience. But there's something to maybe there's something in there. I mean, certainly religions have been sort of part of, or religions stem from sort of sun worship. There's lots of religions who had sun worship. There's Zoroastrians, so it's not unique that Judaism would have taken something from that, especially the Persians and the Babylonians. They had a lot of influence on Judaism. Subsequently, Islam and Christianity would have followed that. But anyway, I want to finish on freedom of speech. The thing with freedom of speech, the fundamental principle is that if you take away my right to offend you, then I can take away your right to offend me. But you don't know what offends me. And are you prepared for me to take those rights from you? Are you prepared for me to lobby against your Bible or your Quran or your Torah or Bhagavad Gita or whatever text it is, for me to put it on a ban list, or to have certain sections of it banned that you can't say because you've offended me? You have to recognize those who wish to so gleefully ban people and make and curtail freedom of speech, because the door swings both ways. It's not just going to be in your favor. What you think you're banning for me, I can ban for you. That's how it works. How much are you willing to have your freedom banned and speech curtailed before you start talking about my freedoms and how you want to take my freedom to insult you? Because I don't want a dawa. Preaching the Quran insults me and offends me dearly. Do you really want to go there? You really want to start this train? Because I don't think you do, Muslims, and certainly any other person from any other religion or belief. You know, we're talking the communists, the socialists, the purple-haired feminists, all the people who are trying to ban people and cancel culture. Remember, that door swings both ways. It will come for you too, and when it does, don't bitch and cry about it then, because you would have lost all your freedoms and you won't get it back. Governments are not going to give it back to you. This freedom of speech has not been bestowed to you by God, unlike some people who think it's inalienable and it's been bestowed to us by God. No, it hasn't. People died for that. People shed their blood for it. And you are a mere custodian of these freedoms. You arrogant, ungrateful, petulant child who doesn't recognize the gift that you were given. As funnily enough, Jesus said, I throw pearls before swine. Your ancestors threw pearls, left you with pearls, but unfortunately you are wasting it away. They gave you a inheritance that you are squandering. These freedoms are not yours and yours alone to do as you will. You are custodians. You're supposed to pass them on to your children. They are not just for you. They are for your ancestors to come. For your descendants to come. And so if you curtail them, if you chop them down, if you relegate them to virtually non-existent, then your children will curse you for them. And on that note, I would like to bid you all farewell. Thank you for coming. For those of you who are here still, thank you for being here. We always do a show at 8 o'clock on a Friday. Come hell or high water, me or Pavlov will do a show at 8 o'clock every Friday. It is set in stone as far as we're concerned. So it shall be written, so it shall be done, as once the Ten Commandments said. So yes, there will be a show every Friday. Tell your friends, tell your buddies, tell your mom, tell your dad. This is going to be kind of a show where even your mom and dad can probably watch without cringing too much. So yeah, spread the word, guys. Watch, come back Friday, 8 o'clock every Friday, Central Supremacists. As well as we're trying to add more days. We'll probably do a couple of more days during the week. I don't know. We have to talk about that. But Pavlov does put up videos all the time about all sorts of wonderful things. In fact, one of them I wanted to talk about, which I didn't even get a chance, the Saddam Hussein video. Go watch it. It's great. So yeah, guys, like, subscribe, and come back next Friday. I thank you. I love you, and I bid you adieu. Have yourself a wonderful night. Ciao.